glad to be with you today. It happens to be December 14th, 2014. And I have some great advice for you today, and also great advice that I want to give myself. One of my favorite scriptures is Isaiah 40:31, which goes like this: They that wait upon the Lord shall be renewed in their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not grow weary. They shall walk and not faint. You know, many people say, hey, I want to fly high in life. So to fly high, you know what you need to do? You need to give up everything that weighs you down. In fact, the writer of Hebrews says in Hebrews 12:1 that we need to lay aside every weight and sin that so easily besets us. So what are the things that you and I need to lay aside? Well, first of all, we got to let go of our past mistakes. I know so many people that are living with regret. One day I was sitting here thinking about some of the things that, I had gone through in my previous profession as a pastor. And one day I realized, I said, you know what? Those things really don't matter. That is not who I am right now. I'm a digital creator. So I'm actually living a brand new life. And so you need to let go of your past mistakes. First of all, they are in the past. You can't do anything about them. You see, every one of us knows that, of course, hindsight is 2020. What we need to focus on, of course, is today and what we do today. That's why it was Peter who said, we grow in the grace and knowledge of the Lord Jesus Christ. So if you're going to fly high, of course, you have to let go of the past. You need to release those things and realize that they aren't going to affect you today. Yes, I understand that sometimes the things that we dealt with in the past have to be dealt with, of course, but once they're gone, let them go and start living in the present, which is, of course, a gift. There's nothing you can do about tomorrow because you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. So live for today. That was that one beautiful song, for example, from the Grassroots. They said, live for today. The second thing that you need to lay aside or get rid of is laziness. Many people also procrastinate. They say, well, I'll put off today, or I'll put off what I can do tomorrow today. And so they allow laziness and procrastination to, of course, hold them back. So many people say, I'll get around to it. Well, sometimes we never get around to what we need to get around. And so it doesn't get done. I have walked beside, and been in areas where people have never cut their grass, where people have never taken care of their home. And so they wonder why their homes are deteriorating. They wonder why their houses, their yards look like a jungle. It's because they've been, procrastinating and they have been lazy. It was Solomon who talked about a farmer who, for example, starved to death. Why? Because he didn't sow crops. He didn't, provide for his family. And then the absolute joke of it was that he had his food right in front of him, but he was too lazy to eat it. And he was wondering why he was hungry. Of course, laziness can be an absolute terrible thing. And procrastination is even worse because the simple fact is that you're not motivated. So many people are not motivated. They're saying, I don't feel like doing this. So you know what? I am not going to do it. The problem is it needs to be done. In my community, for example, we have a bylaw that says you have to clean not only your own sidewalk, but the sidewalk in front of your home. Now, fortunately, I have a couple of very good neighbors. And one day when I was not able to get out, I was driving my bus and it was, a little bit later before I got home. I got home and I looked and I saw that the sidewalk in front of my house had been all cleaned. So the next day, I went and I cleaned both the sidewalk of my neighbor, my own sidewalk, and the neighbor beside me, in, of course, gratitude for the fact that they had cleaned my sidewalk. Well, of course, I also live in a community where people don't clean their sidewalks. And of course, it makes it more difficult to walk on the sidewalk, especially when it snows, because that's what happens where we live. We get snow. So, anyway, it is important to lay aside, of course, these weights and sins, as so easily says, let go of those past mistakes, let go of laziness and procrastination. Also, as well, let go of those negative addictions. Every one of us has habits and addictions that we should be letting go. My dad, for example, he had a negative addiction, and that was smoking. You know what got my dad to stop smoking? One day, he wasn't feeling well, so he went to see the doctor. The doctor run a bunch of tests and said to him, "Mr. Steele, you have cancer." And my dad, up to that point, had been smoking about 3 packs of cigarettes a day. Well, my dad instantaneously gave up his cigarette habit. Now, he actually lived another 30 years because he gave up that addiction. My mom, who also at that time was a smoker, when she saw that dad got cancer as a result of that, she gave up smoking as well. She is now almost 96 years old, or 96 years young. You see, when you give up those negative addictions, you actually add life to your life. I'm not sure what your addiction is. I'm not sure what you're dealing with right now. But let me tell you this, if you want to live an abundant life, if you want to live a successful life, if you want to fly above the situations, you need to give up those negative addictions. For example, if you are a gossiper, if you're someone who shoots off your mouth at the wrong time, well, guess what? That is negatively affecting people around you. Maybe as well, you happen to be difficult to be with because your ego constantly gets in the way. Well, the simple fact is, lay it aside right now. Get rid of those negative addictions, whatever they may be. Also, as well, other people's opinions. So many people care about what other people say. I remember a story called Pride and Prejudice, written by Jane Austen. One of the things that they talked about in that particular book was other people's opinions. Well, we need to let aside or get rid of other people's opinions because remember, reputation is what people, of course, think about you or think they know about you, but character is what you and God know about yourself. True friendship doesn't care about, of course, other people's opinions. Your friend or someone that you're in relationship with who really knows who you are, they're not going to give you a fake friend. Then that's also what we need to let go of, well, is fake friends. People who, only are there of what they can get out of you. We all have people that we know who say they are our friends, but it's only a friendship made on, of course, what they can get out of you. And when you, of course, cannot supply what it is that they want from you, then all of a sudden they disappear. That's fake friends. So you need to get rid of other people's opinion and those fake friends out of your life. Those actual type of situations are holding you back. You may think to yourself, well, I need to have other people's opinions. Well, you know what happens when you are relying on other people's opinions? You know what happens? Their opinion can be negative, and their opinion can weigh you down. And there are times where you have to say, listen, you're wrong. I didn't do that, and I didn't think that way. But that's your opinion. And you know what? You need to lay those things aside. You need to lay aside those fake friends who are only after, of course, what they can get out of you. You need to also get rid of overthinking. That's right. There are many people who overthink. And one, of course, of the uh, problems with overthinking is the fact that you get involved with worry. Worry, of course, can keep you up at night. And did you know that 90% of all the things that people worry about actually never happen? I met a lady years ago who had made one mistake on her income tax return, and she had to pay a penalty, of course, for what she had done. Years later, her husband called me and said, would you talk to my wife? And I said, sure. So I came over and I talked to her, and she had been, this was 9 years later, and every single year when tax time came around, she was an absolute nervous wreck. The one time that she had, difficulty with the revenue service had been weighing on her every single year. But not only every single year, but every single day. He said that she talked about this thing every single day. And I said, listen, that happened 9 years ago. I said, you have been diligent in filing your taxes. You have been diligent in, of course, as well, getting an accountant to help you with that. I said, let the accountant do all of the work. And even the accountant said, we do this on your behalf. If you have any problems, he said, listen, we will fight on your behalf. Well, several years ago, my daughter, for example, had some difficulty with her taxes as well, and she was stressed out. I said, listen, I said, what you need to do is recognize that, talk to the accountant. And so she talked to the accountant. The accountant then had a conversation with the CRA. And you know what? It was all resolved in one phone call. My daughter, of course, was so happy that everything was, taken care of. Allow other people to fight on your behalf. Don't overthink, because when you overthink, you actually maximize a problem. One person put it this way: don't make a mountain out of a molehill. Those little things that so happen to us can actually expand and become a major problem. You're not going to be able to live life to the maximum and also, fly high in life if you are overthinking and you are also worried about things. The last thing I want to remind you about is fear of failure. Many people never try because the simple fact is, of course, they will fail. But did you know that failure is actually a part of life? Did you know that an expert was actually a rookie at one time? Did you know that a big shot was actually a little shot that kept on shooting? Did you know that our failures and our mistakes are actually stepping stones to learning something better? I've done so many DIY projects, do it yourself. And it's amazing how many times I've done things backwards. I want to tell you about a funny little incident. We were putting together a dog house for our dogs. We have two large dogs, and I just couldn't get it right. And I'm thinking, I had been on this project for about half an hour. Finally, in frustration, I picked up the YouTube and I looked and I saw how the YouTube person put it together. I realized that I was actually putting it together upside down and inside out. Well, as soon as I saw the YouTube video, I realized how quickly it could be done. And we had that, doghouse together in less than 10 minutes. Why? Because I, wasn't doing it right. But you see, fear of failure often will cripple us. In fact, there's a Japanese proverb that says, fall down 7 times, get up 8. When life kicks you in the teeth, when you fall down, you know what? You need to get going. You need to not give up. There's a little Facebook post that goes like this: rule number 1, never give up. Rule number 2, remember rule number 1. Every single day, you and I should be willing to fail. Be willing to fail. One of my favorite stories when it comes to, the Olympic stories, and I mean, I love, Olympics. Why? Because these are people who basically never gave up and they kept on going. Now, it's interesting. This is a story of a Filipino weightlifter, a young lady who, when she was 14 or 15 years old, showed excellent promise at becoming a weightlifter, a heavy weightlifter. And in her first Olympics, as a representative of the Filipino community and the nation, she placed 114th. Then the next Olympics, she placed in the top 20. In the next Olympics, she placed within the top 5. On her fourth Olympics, okay? She started as a young lady, and of course, in her fourth Olympics, she won the gold medal. You know how come? She didn't give up. She believed in what she was doing. She had the skills. She had the strength. She had, of course, also as well, the determination not to give up. Then she stood on her fourth Olympics on the podium as the gold medal winner. She was the best in the world at that time. Why? Because she didn't give up. She, of course, had failed many, many times before, but by staying in the game, she won the victory. Last night, for example, I was watching the highlights of the Edmonton and, of course, the Toronto hockey game. And I watched Connor McDavid, who is the world's greatest hockey player, the fastest hockey player in the world. I watched him, take the puck and actually outskate for Toronto Maple Leafs and put it in, of course, the goal. You know what? Connor McDavid, he is always the first person on the ice and the last person to leave the ice. He works at his skills over and over again. He repeats his, drills every single day. He works on his craft. And because of his determination, his persistence, and also as well, his natural ability, he is the best in the world. He is the one who skates all the time. He skates the same patterns. He does the same thing over and over again. It was Michael Jordan who said, I have missed more, basketball shots than I ever made. He said, because I kept on trying. You know what? You and I, to be successful, have to, of course, lay these things aside. So what are these things again? Past mistakes, laziness, and also as well, procrastination. Lay aside also as well all these other things that are standing in the way. And of course, lay aside those negative addictions, other people's opinions, fake friends, overthinking, and also fear of failure. Let these things go and you'll succeed. And actually, you will not be, of course, an individual who stays on the ground. One person put it this way: if you want to fly with the eagles, you got to get rid of the turkey mentality. My name is Robert Dean Steele. Thank you for joining me today. You have yourself a great and godly day. And remember Isaiah 40:31, they that wait upon the Lord shall be renewed in their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not grow weary. They shall walk and not faint. You know what? When you have a success attitude, you will be successful. Have yourself a great and godly day. Also, as well, just a quick reminder that if you like what you're hearing, then of course, press the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, as well, check out my YouTube shorts. today. Of course, I did a whole bunch of them, and they're all about a minute or less, and they are all motivational and also inspirational thoughts, little snapshots and vignettes of advice. Check those out as well. My name is Robert Dean Steele. You have yourself a great and godly day.